All right, so this is Unit 7 in Geometry. Unit is called Data, Statistics, and Probability. And this is Lesson 1. This is called Intro to Statistics. And this entire first page has just definitions on it. All right, so the first definition is the name of the lesson. Statistics is the branch of mathematics dealing with the collection, presentation, interpretation, and organization of data. Statistics. The next definition is called qualitative data. Okay, qualitative data. Let's do right here with this. Qualitative data. Qualitative data is information that cannot be measured. For example, the color of your shirt, your favorite restaurant, etc. Okay, should be a period right there. It's called qualitative data. The next definition is information that can be measured and written down with numbers. For example, your height, your age, etc. That's called quantitative data. Okay? So you have to know the difference between qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative cannot be measured. Quantitative can be measured with numbers. Right? Next definition. In statistics, a measure of central tendency is a central or typical value for distribution of data. Some examples are mean, median, mode, and range. Measure of central tendency. Okay, so again, I said some examples are mean, median, mode, and range. Those are the four that we're going to talk about. In general, those are all called measures of central tendency. Okay, so next four definitions are these four words right here. Okay, the mean is the average of a data set. Okay, that's the mean. To find this value, you add up all the numbers, and then you divide by the total number of numbers. We'll do examples on this in a minute. The median is the middle value. To find this value, you have to arrange all the observations or all the numbers from smallest to largest. Okay? If there are an odd number of observations or numbers, then the median is the one number in the middle. If there are an even number of observations, then the median is the average of the two middle numbers, because there'll be two numbers in the middle. Okay, so that's median. The next definition is mode. The mode is the value that occurs the most often. The next definition is the range. The range explains how spread out the data is. To calculate this value, subtract the smallest number from the largest number. And the final definition is an outlier. An outlier is an observation that lies outside the overall pattern of distribution. So let's say we have a bunch of numbers, and let's say the numbers are 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, and 125. 125 is called an outlier. It's nowhere near the other data. All right? All right, here we go. Example 1. The Providence Friars basketball team has one of the best defenses in the country. Over the last 7 games, they have allowed their opponents to score the following points. Calculate the mean, median, mode, and range of the data. Okay. So first things first, you have to list these in order from smallest to biggest. Now don't miss any when you do that. Okay. So the smallest one is 56. You may want to like cross it out after you do it or something. Here, the next smallest number is 61. The next smallest number is 63. Then we have 64 and then 64 again. Cross them both out and write them both. And then the final two numbers will be 71 and then 80. Okay. Calculate the mean, median, mode, and range. Okay? So for the mean, you're going to add up all these numbers, and you're going to divide by 7 because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 numbers. Okay? So for the mean, add up all the numbers, and then divide by 7 for 7 numbers. Okay? Just be careful when you do that. You may want to do it just twice just to double check yourself. But when you add them all up, you should get 459. Divide that by 7, and that's going to give you 65.6 about. I'll say 65.6. The median is the number in the middle. In this one, there's only one number in the middle. It's 64. Okay? Because there's 3 numbers above it and there's 3 numbers below it. So the median is just 64. The mode is the number that occurs the most often. In this case, the mode is 64, because 64 occurs twice. If 2 numbers appeared the most often, so suppose you had 80 and then 80 again, then you could say the mode is 64 and 80. Okay, so you could have more than one mode. You could also have no mode. So if none of the numbers repeated, you would say no mode. Okay? And then finally, the range is when you take the biggest number and then subtract out the smallest number. So it will be 80 minus 56, which equals 24. Okay. Now we're going to do another problem just like that, except this one is going to have an even number of values. Okay. Alpha Diallo is one of the top college players in the country. Over the past 8 games, he has scored these point totals. Calculate the mean, median, mode, and range of the data. Okay, so the 0, there's a reason for that. Don't worry about that. Anyway, let's put them from smallest to biggest. I believe he was injured in a couple games, so that's why. So from smallest to biggest, 0 is the smallest, and then 3 is the second smallest. The next smallest number on the list will be 13. Next smallest numbers are going to be 14 and then 14 again. So put them both. And then you have 18, 19, 35. Just to make sure you didn't miss any, look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers in the beginning, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers here. Let's start with the mean. Add up all the numbers, and this time you're going to divide by 8 because there's 8 numbers. So when you add up all the numbers, you get 116. Divided by 8 is going to give you 14.5 points per game. The median, okay? There's 2 numbers in the middle. Okay, in the last example, there was 1. There's 2 numbers in the middle. So what you have to do, if you know the answer right away, you can say the answer right away. What you have to do is you have to add them and you have to divide by 2. You're basically getting the average of those 2. 28 divided by 2 is 14. That should have been obvious because both of the numbers were the same. But suppose you had 14 and 16. When you add them and you divide by 2, you get 15. Okay. That's how you do it when there's an even number of values. The mode is a number that occurs the most often. So in this case, the mode will be 14. And then the range equals the biggest number minus the smallest number. So 35 was the biggest number, 0 is the smallest, so when you subtract them, you get 35. Okay, the next page. Eric has gotten the following grades on his quizzes. He wants an 85 or better overall average. What is the minimum grade he must get on the last quiz? A lot of times people ask me this question, okay? Here's how we do it. You're going to take the four numbers and you're going to add them together like this. I'm going to do 87 plus 80 plus 95 plus 76 plus 88, and then I'm going to do plus x, and that's what I'm trying to solve for. I'm going to divide that by 5 because there's 5 quizzes, the 4 he already took, and then the 1 he still has to take. You want that to be at least be an 85, so I'm just going to say equals 85 for now. Add up the 4 numbers. That's going to give you 346. Plus x divided by 5 has to equal 85. Solve that for x. So what you're going to do is you're going to multiply each side by 5 to get the following. When you multiply by 5, on the left, you just have 346 plus x left over equals 85 times 5 equals 425. Subtract 346, you get x equals 79, and that's the answer. I'll say Eric must get at least a 79 on the last quiz. Eric must get at least a 79 on the last quiz. Example 4, determine if the data is qualitative or quantitative. 4A, the amount of wins of the Providence Friars each season. Well, that's numbers. Okay, that's in numbers, so it's quantitative. Think back to the first page. Quantitative is numbers. Just think there's an N in quantitative, so numbers. Example 4B, the color of your eyes, that is definitely qualitative. Your favorite holiday is qualitative. Again, those are not numbers. But 4D, your grades on the geometry quizzes, that is definitely represented by numbers. So that will be quantitative. Okay. All right, last page. Sometimes a certain measure of central tendency is better to use when describing a set of data. Okay, so when the data is spread out, usually it's good to use the mean. Okay, when the data is rarely clustered around a number, like for example, let's say you have the numbers 10, 10, 11, 11, 12, 12, 12, 11, 10, 11, 12, 12, 12, 10, 10, 10, 11. That's when it's good to use the mode, when the data is tightly clustered around a certain number. The median is useful when the data contains outliers, okay? An outlier, remember, is a data point that is distinctly separate from the rest of the data, okay? Because that skews the other pieces of central tendency. Okay, so example 5A, or example 5 in general, what measure of central tendency would be best to represent the data in each scenario below? Example 5A, the salaries of various people in a company. If you notice, we have a couple outliers, a couple numbers that are very far apart from the rest of the data. That means you don't want to use the mean because the outliers skew the mean, okay? I'm going to say that the median is best to use because there are a few outliers. Okay. Example 5B, the waiting time in a restaurant. All right. Well, data is really clustered together around a certain time, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's when it's good to use the mode. I'm going to say that the mode is best to use because the data is really close together and a few values are repeated a lot. That's when it's good to use the mode. Some of these are debatable. The mode is best to use because the data is really close together and a few values are repeated a lot. Okay. So again, like I said, some of these are debatable. So if you look at the next one, the prices of some new sneakers. If you say mode for this, that makes no sense because there is no mode. So you definitely don't want to use the mode. Okay. But I'm going to say that the mean is best to use because the data is a little spread out and there's no mode and there's no outlier. I'm going to say the mean. If you argue the median, I can see that argument as well. I'm going to go with the mean. I'm going to say the mean is best to use because the data is a little spread out. And there is no mode and no outlier. All right. So like I said, some of these are debatable. If you have any quiz questions on these or test questions on these, I'll make sure the ones that are pretty obvious which measure central tendency is best. I won't put any on there that are debatable. Okay. But that's the end of that lesson. That is Unit 7, and that was the first lesson, Intro to Statistics.